the precipice of a disaster. It looks like where we're going is in the wrong direction, and I don't see any way to get out of it.
But you said if we, just then if we acknowledge, the cliff we're heading towards, we could do at least something. What are some of those things?
What I do right off the bat is I say, dear Fed, I wouldn't say, well, geez, asset bubbles are just a thing. Forget that. Dear Fed, from now on you worry about inflation, nothing else. If you worry about something else, you're fired. None of this cheap money stuff, none of this monetary policy, none of this macro managing the economy, none of this trying to get make sure you're at the A dinners in Washington because you run everything. None of that. Forget that. In fact, I'd like to replace you with an algorithm if I could get away with it. And I supported Bernanke's appointment because when he came in saying Fed needs to be transparent, we need to be more obvious, we need to do less, everything should be administrated, and then he lied. He flipped around and did exactly the reverse. When you get in office and you look around and you've got all this power, all of a sudden you're going to fix things because everybody else is stupid. And it's just it's a disease, and he's got it. And before he got in, he didn't have it. And he was writing as an academic. He wrote all this stuff that he's now, I didn't do it. Well, great. Romer's the same thing. She wrote a bunch of stuff that was pretty reasonable, and she got on Obama's staff, and she had to disclaim most of it. You put these people in power, and they cannot help themselves. They just cannot help them. We've got to stop people in power from just believing that they have the foresight and the ability to create a system that magically will work for the rest of us. It's lunacy. This whiz-kid approach to life, it's lunacy. And we are where we deserve to be because we put up with it and we defer to it. Yeah?
I guess starting with Professor Snyder, do you think we'd be better off without a Federal Reserve?
I don't regard it as a possibility. I think we have to have a central bank. I just don't think we can have a modern economy without a central bank. So I guess the answer is no, we would not be better off without a Federal Reserve. They do now, which is not to say they haven't made mistakes, but what the idea is we cannot avoid mistakes. The question is how to manage mistakes and how to plan for the fact that there are going to be mistakes, and there are going to be a variety of kinds. And it might be better, and this is a piece of the speech that I didn't talk about, we might come up with a better design for that agency to split out some of its functions. That's the sort of thing that makes me really mad about some of the regulatory reform we're doing, is we're taking the existing world and then we're just adding more stuff, more agencies, and it's being done in a way that strikes me as a really bad way to try to manage things, especially regulation. Everything we know about regulation and bureaucracies, we're going to have more and more of both, and not effective stuff.
Well, right now, the Fed's totally screwed up, so our solution with a 2,000-page bit of legislation is to double down on their power. Give them a lot more to do. So maybe they'll screw up worse. I think the Fed should be cut way back in its responsibility. You might have to have a Fed, but it doesn't have to do with this Fed. And so, if Obama came to me tomorrow, which he won't, I'm worried. I'd say fire Geithner, fire Bernanke, and have a press conference and say we've been embarrassed by these people, and they've made these mistakes, and the new guy I'm putting in there, if he does this, I'm going to fire him. Sincerely, gosh, he might even win the midterms if he does something like that. Just cut this stuff out, this micromanaging sort of mess out. Just cut it out. Get these people. I think we'll have a Fed. It's just a question of whether it has these ubiquitous powers. Now the Fed is, under the new legislation that was passed, we're going in the wrong direction. The Fed has a lot more power to mess. And when it messes up, it's going to be bigger than it's hard to imagine a bigger mess up. It really is. But the next one will be bigger because they have more power and more connections than they did even under Bush with this one. I don't know why it is that the people responsible for not doing things in the crisis, and it's like accountants getting a lot more revenue-based power in the Sarbanes-Oxley legislation. messed up, so we doubled their responsibilities and upped their billing and upped their revenues. I mean, we have this habitual sort of belief that if we get the right people in the right places, magical things happen. And we doubled down on the regulatory authority that already is screwed up. It's a remarkable thing to see, actually, watch it from the outside. Yeah.
Since the early 70s, when Nixon removed the gold standard, I guess the dollar's been devalued, unemployment's gone up, our economy's been unstable. Do you think we should go back to the gold standard?
No. I don't. Look, gold is a myth. We tell a paper is just a promise unbacked by a government. What's gold? Can't eat it. Gold is basically valueless, unless we value it for something. You put it in jewelry, I guess, which I don't like it. But gold is basically also a mythical asset. There's nothing to it. If you want to go back on some kind of standard, let's pick one that has real value, like plutonium or something. Take that one. Whatever. Plutonium-based international. Gold is worthless. Doesn't do much. So therefore, you have a confidence kind of feature of gold, just like you have the confidence for paper money. To me, gold might as well be paper money. Yeah.
And recently, Great Britain announced they're making very sizable cuts kind of across the board to government. I guess my question is,
Yep.
assuming there
Krugman
was...
hates it, by the way. And if you want to get a rebuttal of Krugman, which is my favorite, go to the Telegraph newspaper, which is the one I read out of the UK, and they just go after Krugman tooth and nail. The Telegraph says, "Who is this guy? You should leave it. He's already mucked up. What's he doing over here?" And they really rip it. And we haven't had anybody over here really take on Krugman. You read the Telegraph and their approach to Krugman's criticism of the UK.
Well,
I mean, I'm right there. I'm right with it.
I guess, assuming there came to be a consensus here, which I don't know how optimistic I am that would happen, but assuming there was a similar consensus here, is the hole too deep for it to really matter a lot? Do you feel like I'll call it the Oesterle doomsday scenario, is that kind of unavoidable, or if we did make those cuts, would it work?
My position is we're managing the epidemic that's hit. A lot of people are going to die. And the best we can do is make them more comfortable and do the best we can under the circumstances. But the epidemic is here. We could have done a few things. The last chance we had to stop the epidemic was, I think, in 2002 or 2003, and I get specific if you like. We passed that up. We're set. And the forces are in motion. We're set. When you lock in the political realities of the United States, it's just, we're going to have to inflate our way out of this by printing money. Our major investors now understand that. If you read the press releases coming out of China, which I try to do, they are just stunningly assertive about this. I mean, they see it, and they view it as inevitable too, I think.
And it's the political realities that are really crucial to see here. Even if you believe in a certain amount of stimulus spending, and I'm going to say I'm agnostic on that, it's very hard to get rid of program-based spending. I'm going to go with near impossible. And that's why we really have to be careful with what we're doing now and how it's structured. And if you put it in as programmatic spending instead of a one-time pop, then we've got the worst of all possible worlds, right? We're hitting in a bunch of different areas in ways that are going to, let's just say, give more credibility to the Oesterle doomsday scenario.
Look, I have a favorite story that I tell sometimes in class. I don't know if I told you folks. I appreciate it. I can't remember which class gets it. Star Trek, when I was a kid, I liked Star Trek. It was a moralistic show, kind of future look. And it wasn't doing so well at the end, so they had a big meeting in the morning and they canceled the show, even though they were still filming. They canceled. And on the set, they had a setup and they were on some planet with creatures and things, and in the background a car drove across the set. And the guy who was behind him, that was his first message, that they canceled the show, that an executive had just driven across the set in an automobile. Now what did they do?